Proponents of nuclear energy are saying that nuclear power is key to a clean, reliable, and affordable energy supply. Senator David Senjem is chair of the Energy and Utilities Committee, and he joins me to talk about nuclear energy and other proposals to expand affordable, carbon-free energy. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
It's
always
nice
good.
Yeah, it's great to see you. 11 states now have policies in support of advanced nuclear energy, and your committee has spent the last few weeks delving into advanced nuclear energy technologies. In your view, is this a direction that Minnesota should go?
Well, I think it's certainly an option, and we always talk about the menu. So, and what we're talking about now is not giant nuclear power plants or anything like that. We're talking about much smaller units that might be appropriate for a city, depending on the size and so on and so forth. So I think you have to have it in the menu, and right now we have a moratorium in Minnesota. The utilities really, I mean, because of that moratorium, they can't even, I mean, they can think about it, but they really can't go forward with it, and they're not going to spend any money even evaluating it at this point, given the moratorium. So we'd like to lift that moratorium so some of these ideas can kind of fulminate a little bit. Doesn't mean we do them or not, but it's certainly an option. To your question, it's certainly an option that we ought to look at.
Well, in lifting that moratorium, there are bills that would do that. There's also some resistance, usually based on waste and what happens to the waste. Now, one of the testifiers did say that a key to the waste issue is educating the public. Do you agree that if the public were more educated on what nuclear waste is and the safety of it and all of that, that would help move the needle?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the waste is the waste, but we have technology. We have these dry cast devices, containers in Prairie Island, frankly, and Monticello right now, which are securely holding it. They will literally take a lot of force should that ever happen. It probably won't, but they're very, very sturdy. They're very, very able to contain these materials and the radiation within them. So literally, they're tubes, standing tubes on a concrete slab, and you can see them, and you can frankly touch them if you want to, I guess, and so they're monitored 24 hours, literally 24 hours a day. So I believe that's pretty safe. I mean, you have to look at the physics of all this, and certainly that's been done repeatedly. This is safe, but people just don't understand this from the standpoint of nuclear power, atom bombs, et cetera, et cetera. It's all that kind of feeds into this. But I do wish that people could go down to Prairie Island and see some of this, or Monticello, because I think they'd feel somewhat relieved about how we're handling them.
Now, your committee had presentations about what they're calling advanced nuclear technology. And so you're talking about what Minnesota has to, traditional, very large-scale nuclear power plants. However, some of these new technologies offer a variety in fuel sources, innovations in safety systems, and also completely different scale from these very large, what we traditionally think of. Is this new emerging technology, I think someone in the committee said it's a very exciting time. Is it an exciting time? Are we on the cusp of a kind of nuclear renaissance?
Well, I think so, because this world right now is certainly looking for energy independence, getting off oil and things like that, more than maybe ever in my lifetime. And so we're also looking for clean, reliable energy. And so, and certainly affordable, but so what's on the menu? It's we certainly have wind, solar. The hydrogen revolution is coming. We know that from the standpoint of a storage media and frankly fuel, and that's clean and that's good. But I don't think we can forget nuclear power either, because it does provide that clean and reliable power that we all want. We want the lights on. We want the cameras on. And we need that, and so this is certainly an option. It's a little more expensive maybe in the short term, but these things last a long time, and so they can be kept going, and in a safe, reliable way, and more safe than ever, frankly, as we learned in the hearing. So yeah, you can't forego these, I don't think, at all. I mean, we don't complain too much about aircraft carriers. We don't complain too much about nuclear submarines. But the big power plant is just one of those things that people almost in an ingrained way sort of are fearful of.
I'd like to shift away from nuclear power right now because you have two bills that I'd like to talk about that would perhaps lower energy costs. Outside of the nuclear question, you're proposing a bill that would create a process by which the Public Utilities Commission would allow natural gas utilities to sell bonds as a way of reducing the economic impact on customers after extraordinary events. So I assume we're talking about an event like the polar vortex in Texas last year. How does the bond sale help alleviate that price spike that we saw here?
Well, let's just say, for instance, the Texas incident, the gas companies, in the middle of the winter, they still obviously needed to serve customers. Their price of gas went way up and almost to the point of unaffordable for the gas company itself, but they had to buy it at extraordinary prices. Now what do they do with this situation they're in? They have to pass it on to the ratepayers, and that's what we're experiencing right now. They might be able to borrow a little bit short term. This would allow the gas companies to be able to buy bonds, perhaps 20-year bonds at a very, very low interest rate, AAA bonds, and then effectively sort of level that payment off so that it's much more incremental over a long period of time and much less notice than we're noticing right now. So it's a tool, if you will, as it was described in the toolbox. It may or may not be used. If it is used, it's going to be used with the Public Utilities Commission, a lot of scrutiny, a lot of oversight, and so on. But we thought, it was certainly in the committee, that was a good thing to advance. And I dare say it's probably going to go through our bill, and the House, I think, was going to agree, and we'll have this in law, and so we'll be able to level those spikes off. That's what this thing does. It levels the spikes off a little easier on consumers, and frankly saves a lot of money in the long term for consumers.
It would certainly be appreciated for those of us who saw much higher energy prices than we are accustomed to. You're also author of a proposal that would allot $10 million in one-time funding for an energy storage incentive program. So the proposal would allow electric utilities to provide grants to customers for the installation of energy storage systems. So if this became law, would my electricity provider potentially offer me a grant, and maybe how much, to put solar panels on my roof?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Well, depending on, you have to be an XL customer.
Okay.
So
okay,
that's for
XL.
starters, because
okay.
this the ability to do this financially comes out of what we call a renewable development account, and that's exclusive to the XL service territory in Minnesota. But if that were the case, the answer is yes. You would be eligible, and more people certainly are installing solar panels on their roof. They do sell the excess electricity back to the utility. But this would allow for those that want to an ability to store it within their battery, typically located in their basement or wherever it might be, and be able to live off that battery incrementally as the peaks and valleys of the day go by, and in terms of energy usage in your house. So it's an attractive option, and we'll see how it goes. But it's brand new, at least in terms of a thought here, and we're going to try it.
Senator David Senjem, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Always fun. Thank you.